everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Good, Bad, and Ugly of Business. I'm your host, Catryn Becker. On this podcast, we interview people from all different walks of life, all different industries, professions, roles, because we know that people have learned amazing things in their lifetime, and we want to learn it too. Because while a smart person learns from their mistakes, a genius learns from the mistakes of others. And we know that there's something to be learned in every single failure, every single success. There's always a lesson, and we are here to share it. So my guest today has had an interesting story, and it's something that's really relatable for every industry, because whether you're male or female, you are going to be working with other males or other females. And it's important to understand how we can work together to have a really harmonious relationship between the two. So my guest today, her name is Jessie Easley, and she spent 15 years working in a very male-dominated field that was very difficult for her. And she has since transitioned into another male-dominated field that has been much easier. So we want to talk about what made it so difficult and what made this new one much easier, so that you can take those lessons, whether you're in a male-dominated field or whether you are a male in a male-dominated field, and maybe not be even aware of what your female coworkers are going through. So Jessie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So how was that for an introduction? Did that pretty much cover?
Yeah, no, you did great. That was perfect. The PSA to, hey, if you're a guy and you want to know how to talk to people around you so that you don't appear to be aggressive, that part, I'm really loving it.
Because it's so true, though, that I truly believe, that's part of my belief system, is that most people are good people and they don't want to be mean or hurtful to someone else. We're just not always aware of it. And I know from even talking with my husband, because I came from engineering for 20 years. So I've always been in male-dominated fields, some better than others. I've been really blessed to have incredible male mentors and bosses who always looked out for me and always treated me equally. But I can see it from other perspectives too. And so there'd be conversations I'd have with my husband where he just wouldn't get it, or he would start mansplaining, and I'd be like, enough with the mansplaining. I don't need this. And he came at it from a good-hearted place, and he just didn't understand how he was affecting other people. So let's go into your story a little bit. I know you were telling me a little bit before we started the recording. And I think it's just really important to kind of give an overview of kind of your home life and what led you into sales and how that's impacted your life. So let's just start at the beginning a little bit.
Absolutely. So I came from a bumpy start in life. So I was looking to find a path because school wasn't going to be the path for me. So I was
Can you talk a little bit more about why that wasn't? Because it's interesting, in the position I've been in to interview so many incredible people, and there's a lot of very successful people where school wasn't the path for them. So what was it for you?
So I grew up in a poverty situation where I didn't really get to even finish school wholeheartedly. I didn't have the whole school experience because I was working like 3 jobs, sometimes side jobs throughout, my sophomore, junior, and senior year of high school. So that made it almost impossible to focus on school.
Sure.
So I lost my love of any school in that process. So when it was time to go, I went for about 1 semester and I said, this is just not for me. It's not built for me. I didn't thrive. I was so used to just working all the time that the focus I needed to be attentive to learning, it wasn't there. So then I decided that I needed to find another path in life, whether it be a trade or anything of that. So I started working at call centers just to that was available at the time. It was like 2007, 8, 9-ish. So call centers were hopping. So I went and I interviewed, and I found that I was good at talking to people. I found that I was good at convincing people to do stuff over the phone.
It's quite a testament, because we have all had the experience of telemarketers calling, and you've got to be a special person to break through, because everyone has those preconceived notions of, nobody wants to be sold to in that way. So you must have really had some incredible skills to be able to break through that.
So yeah, and I have to give my mom credit through all of that, through working at such a young age, through, finding ways to make money, through finding ways to, keep your head afloat as a family that didn't have anything. She, you go talk to people, you stand in lines, food pantries, you stand at lines for people to pay your electricity bill. You talk your way into getting what you need. So from a very young age, she had me wheeling and dealing at yard sales and everything. So I think that I have to give her some credit for that. So at this call center, I wasn't completely happy because it was very pump out numbers kind of thing, and I needed a little bit more freedom. So I went to have a interview while I was doing this, and it was at a local car dealership. It's okay, I say the industry, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is
Okay,
your
cool.
story, girl. You tell you
All right.
you want to share.
Got it. So I was at a local car dealership. I'm like, I love cars. I know lots about cars, and I love talking to people about stuff, and I can sell things. So let's try to talk to people about buying cars and bring them in to meet their salespeople. This sounds like a fun job. So I was spot on. It was a super fun job, and I was actually hired by a male who was unbelievably encouraging and supportive and absolutely raised me up. And it was one of the only male experiences I had that was 100%. He just made a conscious decision to be equally amazing to everybody in that room. So he started the path out very positively. So as I went, I saw I can make money doing this. This is fun. It's fun to make money, right? When you're 21, 22 years old.
I think
So
it's fun to make money at any age.
Yeah, absolutely. So that, and again, the auto industry, I have to give it credit. It is a place where you can go and be anything. You can be bad at school. You could be bad at life. You could be bad or great. There's people who have, accounting degrees and school under their belt, and they thrive. It's just a land of misfit toys, and everybody
really thought about it that way, but I think something you said is really resonating with me in the fact that, in some sales positions, you're going out and seeking the person, right? Like you're selling a new product, something that no one's seen before, and you got to try to convince people. But the people who are walking into a dealership, they're there because they know they want to buy a car. They just don't know which car. So it is
Yep.
kind of a really great place for someone to start and to get sales experience.
It's phenomenal. And I can't tell you how many positive things it's done for myself and people around it. And sometimes it's just a matter of a different manager, because a lot of people in car dealerships, they just don't get proper training because they start as salespeople and then a management position opens up and they keep moving up and up and up. And they still don't get that proper training because it's a very fast paced industry. And that leads to people who may not understand how to communicate in the most delicate ways and the best ways to grow a person, lead a group. It's a domino effect of just not being able to be the best manager you could be, or being put into the best getting managed situation you could be. Because like you said at the beginning, I think a lot of these people had good intentions, but did not understand that what they were doing a lot of the time.
Well, and that's so true in management in general, like especially like when I came in out of technical roles in engineering. So the people who are good at the technical roles tend to be more of the left brainers. They're very analytical, very process driven, not generally so great on the people skills. But because they were so great in the technical, they would get promoted, and then they would struggle as managers because because management's two parts, right? You've got management and leadership needing to occur together, which are two very different skill sets. So the managers need to have the processes in place while the leadership piece needs to be able to deal with people. So I imagine for salespeople, they mostly have the people part figured out, but they might not be so good at the process part.
Absolutely. You're so spot on. And the people who are the extroverts and can talk to anybody off the streets and sell them anything, that they have their own little world that they can be good in. But when it comes to communication too, they lack in lots of ways, just because they're used to keeping themselves afloat, and they have their blinders on a lot of times is really the best way to explain that.
They figured out what's worked for them and aren't so great at figuring out what's going to work for someone else. It's a skill set that they just haven't been taught.
Exactly. So that's what I mean is, both ways have their disadvantages, and it's up to us as growing adults. I mean, I'm still figuring out how to communicate with myself, with my husband, with my friends, with my kid. I mean, it's a learning process. And if you have kind of old school people who don't believe they have to learn or grow, that's where you get the gunk in the tube. Because you have a lot of old school processes and things that aren't going to work anymore, but they still believe in their heart of hearts that it's going to work. So,
okay. So, you've mentioned that there were some not so great parts about it. And now that we have a little bit of context around, why that would happen, can you share some stories of, maybe things that were said to you or situations that occurred? Because it's one thing to say, oh, it was a toxic workplace, toxic masculinity, or just the old boys club, but it really helps to illustrate with story what exactly happened, because, most men just don't notice those kind of things. So I really want to make sure for our male listeners, because I already know that the women listeners, they've experienced it, right? They know.
yeah,
They're probably nodding their head like, yes, girl. But let's talk about, let's really put this story in a perspective for the male listeners so that they can think about, hey, have they ever seen this happen? Have they ever been part of this? So that we can really help them to be part of the solution.
absolutely. So the best way to describe is, if I'm going to say it in one ball, it's a communication, underwhelming amounts of communication. So you could be in a meeting amongst other managers and say you're the only woman in that meeting, and everybody's communicating and sharing opinions towards something important. In that time, it is so vital to give the floor to everybody in that room. So think of it like that. That's how I'll start it. There's been times where I've said, hey, this is a great idea. We should do A, B, and C. And then zero acknowledgement. The guy on the other side of the round table says almost exactly the same thing.
And everyone's like,
oh, you're a genius. And I'm just like, was everybody like, did they turn off their hearing aid? Like, what happened here? So the communication, and also to go into management training and promotion. In a lot of ways, a woman could be doing so many different jobs, because I think we naturally take on more than we're given, which, yeah. So
it's a whole separate episode.
Oh yeah. So we're out here just not only doing our job, but thinking of other ways to do that job, and probably doing other jobs while we're at it. And that gets overlooked and overseen so much. And what had happened with me multiple times, I believe it was 3 times, I had worked my way up. After 5 years, I said, hey, I would like to go for the management position. Okay, we're going to give it to a male. Okay, it's been 7 years. This male isn't working very well. I would like to sign up to do this job. I have lots of good things to offer the position. Passed up for somebody else. And it was a male. And then eventually a woman took over that role over me, who was a reference from inside the company. Okay, cool. That's fine. Let's do it. And then I was once more passed over for it again. So it was 4 times I was passed up for it, and I showed nothing but the drive and the promise for the job and the commitment. So, and it was a matter of, they didn't listen, they didn't look at the facts, and it was just a decision behind closed doors of putting somebody they trusted, or somebody, I don't want to say just say a guy in that position, but just put a guy in that position. And that just really.
Ask you a question there?
Yeah.
Did you ever ask them why they passed you over?
Yes. I did one time. I did not do it every time, but I did it one time. And the answer I got was, you're just not ready. And in which I said, I am ready, A, B, C, D. And of course went on to give my presentation as to why I'm ready. And they said, we'll take that into consideration for next time. Mm-hmm. They were never hateful about it or malicious about it. it's worse than hate and malicious whenever it's just like, you're not even worth enough to listen to, if that makes any sense.
And it does. And I think the reason that I bring that up is I think in so many instances, anytime we're told no, we can tend to take it personally. It's just human nature. And so because we take it personally, we don't stop to say, okay, well, why not? And this goes for getting promotions. This goes for sales pitches. I mean, so many different things like, what could I do better? I think would be a great follow-up question of like, okay, you say I'm not ready. What do I need to work on to get that? And so I just wanted to point that out for anyone that's, in any sort of position, that to put the emotion aside and just to be able to ask the question and get some honest feedback, because I don't think we do that enough. And it's useful.
So it's funny. Sorry.
No, go for it.
It's funny you say that because there was, in January of this past year, I went to my boss. All right. And it's awesome you said that. Thank you. You sparked something. I went to my boss and I sat down and I was like, I have a list. And I said, I would like monthly reviews. I want to know exactly what I can do better. I want to know what you like and what you don't like about my team and my performance. And I was just like, I want you to redo my job description so that I'm doing the most I can for this company. And I'm putting the ball in your court. Once a month, I want you to schedule a meeting with me. Okay. And I was so proud of myself. I was like, I'm going to make so much money. This team's going to grow. And I'm being assertive and asking for what I want. And then in July, when I went, so from January to July, please ask me how many meetings we had together.
Yeah. Zero.
So that goes with the communication, listening, acknowledgement, part of management, I think, because that just, and I wanted to say, hey, let's have a meeting. But I was like, no, it's not your job. He's your boss. You're not his. Let him come to you. So that's another piece of what you said that just is so true.
Yeah. Okay. So you're getting passed over as promotions. You end up working with this company for 15 years. What was the final straw to say, I got to go someplace else? I'm not being valued here. I need to own my worth and go someplace where I am valued.
So to give a little bit of glistening to the end of that side of things, about 7 years ago, they did give me the part I wanted, the role I wanted. And I took that role and I did phenomenal with it. I hired a all-woman workforce. I had 9 girls working for me by the time I left. Our numbers were phenomenal. I was cranking things out left and right. And we were just rock stars. The whole team was full of rock stars. So they ended up going with me, I think, out of just like they didn't have another option. But
you were persistent, that is for sure.
Yeah. So out of persistence is probably what did it. And in that room, my department grew amazingly. And that was the worst part of leaving, was growing all that for that 7 years that I had and having to leave, because what was the last straw is how I started off talking to you and saying, hey, here's a major decision. We're at a round table discussion with all the other managers, trying to have a productive, respective conversation. And I'm getting passed up and I'm trying to present information and data. And it was week after week after week, I would read off information and it was great. We were doing wonderful. But the other side of things weren't doing as wonderful. So they wanted to play a blame game. And I was like, I'll get numbers. Let's figure this out together. And it eventually got to the point where I was running such a great room, but the toxicity from the bottom was coming. We worked upstairs, so I always say it's seeped up top. It would float up and leak into my room. So we had a great room with great bond and great productivity, because all of that goes together. And all this toxic sludge was trying to get in from other managers, calling up and being rude to my workers, just thinking lesser of my team. And
Do you think
they
it
were
just basically came out of jealousy? They were just jealous of your performance? Because, you mentioned to me, you were very humble about it, but you did mention to me before we started recording that you had the best team in the company.
I did. And I think they also thought they had the best everything, which made for headbutting because like I said before, my team was putting out numbers. We communicated. Like as far as if I were the owner of a company, that's the kind of team I'd want to see. Their team, was just not as together. So I think it is out of that, but also constant misunderstanding. That created a lot of that friction.
Companies really don't give enough stock to how much money they lose in like opportunity costs due to miscommunication. Like,
oh yeah,
it's astounding numbers, really. I mean, one study estimated that for every 10 employees that a company has, they probably lose about $40,000 a year due to miscommunication issues.
That is insane. I didn't know that.
Yeah, isn't that wild? And if you think about your situation, that's probably a low number, actually.
So I go to go back to your question. I'm sorry, I wasn't ignoring it.
Oh gosh, this is how this works, girl. We just are having a fun time. It's all good.
So it was the last straw situation where my team had been given a project and they had absolutely rocked it. And the project was taken from the salespeople and given to my department from my annoying persistence, because that's what it was. Because I knew that it was going to make the company money, and whatever was going to make the company money was what I was there for, because I wasn't there just for fun. I wanted to, make something of it. So I had taken this project away from the sales department, and I had taken it in mine and did it for 3 months. And that 3 months, it wasn't, the numbers weren't even tracked before. So I can't even say we we blew it out of the park that way. But my team did so well. And in every meeting, I would just have my notebook, because I wrote everything down, and read out the numbers and be like, here's how it went. And it was just met with doubt. Oh, those numbers, that's not right. Then I'd show them why it's right. Doubt. And it would be as black and white as you can make it, but they just didn't want to give credit. And they didn't want to see the value in this room, or acknowledge it out loud almost. So after 3 months of really, really good industry standard good numbers, they said, all right, you're off the project. And nobody had communicated with me. It was just given to me in a round table meeting. And all that work felt like it was just like they just dumped poop on it. It was a horrible feeling. And so I had to go then and deliver to my girls, instead of saying, hey, everybody said you're doing a great job. I can only tell them so much. It always feels good whenever, like, the owner of a company or a manager, hey, you guys are just doing phenomenal. That support takes.
That's a really important piece to, like, not overlook, because it's free. It takes 5 minutes of someone's time to walk in there and completely change the energy of a room, whether they're delivering bad news or good news. But, if you're coming in there and just saying, hey, really great job, you're going to get so much more out of your teams by doing that. And
Absolutely.
It doesn't cost anything. So it's a really great point. And I think it's something that, all of the business owners listening to can really, take to heart and go, hey, am I doing this? Am I doing this enough? Those are the two questions, right? Am I doing it? Yes or no? And then, am I doing it enough? Can I do it more?
Absolutely. And those people in the middle, those managers in the middle, that a lot of them were angry and rude to me. The middle group of managers, I would include myself in that. Those people need acknowledgement just as much as employees from up top, because they're getting run over by customers. They're getting run over by employees. They're handling so many different things. So a lot of the other middle management that was, so awful to me in a lot of ways, I think it was out of frustration and them not being managed well either. I think that's a huge point all around.
Yeah, it definitely comes top down, those kind of things. I mean, culture is everything. That's what I do outside of running this podcast is helping companies with culture. So I'm definitely there with you. But before we wrap up, I want to kind of talk about where you are now, and what are some of the differences that you're noticing that is making it so much different and more enjoyable for you.
So the things that were wrong at the last place, this new place has. My manager daily will Google Meet me. Hey, you're doing really well. Here's what I want you to do. Hey, you're doing this well. You could work on this, but you're also doing this well. He'd give me a compliment sandwich, which I live for that stuff. And like, yes, give me all the criticism and the compliments at the same time. Thank you. The other people I work with, it's all men except for a couple other women, and they are so calm and they are so meek. And not to say that a man or a woman should be one or the other, but it's just so respectful to say, hey, here's this. Could you please do this for me? Please and thank you. And just basic common kindness is just the biggest difference. And having people who are, no matter how bad the customers are, which customers are going to be bad no matter where you go, no offense to customers, but no matter what the day throws at you, you don't have people pulling you down from this other side where you're at. So that is the biggest difference, is the kindness, the courtesy, and just basic overall respect of another human being that each of those people show. And it's still a male dominated industry. I didn't even know this was possible. It's awesome. So I miss my old team and all that work.
What I'm really hearing too from you is, for your person who you are, you need communication. Not everyone does, but I think what's the real, important nugget for a manager listening to take away, or even an employee listening, is that it's understanding what your communication style is and the communication style of your team. Because someone else who doesn't need the amount of communication you do might feel micromanaged and might feel completely like stifled, like, oh, why are you always over my shoulder, kind of thing. But it's knowing your team and being able to first understand them and being able to understand what they need, and then being able to understand and how to differentiate between them and how you change your style and be flexible between them. So I think that's a huge skill that is not given enough credit. But I think your story really illustrates that, here you are, an incredible hard worker, incredibly persistent, which in today's world, let's be frank, there are not that many people that want to work. Like it's not something you see. And so, for your first company to lose you because they couldn't see that, it should be an eye opener for other companies of what great talent are they losing, or are they not optimizing correctly because they're not taking the basic time to understand what it is that they need.
Absolutely. And there's probably people in everybody's company that are just like me, that have tons of, potential, and they just need the right person to pay attention to them. Not everybody is loud and screams, I want to do this. And those people are overlooked so much.
Yeah. Well, this has been so great, Jessie. I really appreciate you sharing your journey and your story of what you went through, because there is so much here that can be applied to every industry, every profession. This definitely goes far and much wider beyond just you and I. So this was really great. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for letting me come share. That was very awesome. Thank you.
Well, that's what this podcast is about, is it's from learning from one another. I mean, I truly believe that there's way more that brings us together than separates us, if we just take the time to actually sit down and listen to one another. Communication is everything.
Absolutely.
All right, to the listeners, thank you so much for being here. I always appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with your network. It would mean the world to me. If there's something that you learned or took away from this, please reach out. I'd love to hear about it. And if there's a person or an industry or a role or something that you're curious about, let me know that too. And I'll see if I can get a great guest to be on here to answer all the questions. So until next time, everyone, take care.